Book 1, Chapter 10. It's 1980, after China, now in India. A few months after Ben arrived at the ashram. A tiny room just off a huge complex outside a northern Indian village. The space is made to feel even smaller by overflowing chests, cupboards, bookshelves and tables. Amidst the stuff, a purring sound is coming from what looks like a fluffy ginger ball. The mound is near camouflaged by a large red hardcover book, on which it has made its unsteady home. The book itself is balanced precariously on a transparent box of half-eaten jalebis. A cross-legged figure sits on a threadbare cushion close to the cat. Maybe it is a trick of perspective, but Ben can't help but entertain the thought that the man appears no larger than his feline companion. The dark-skinned subject of Ben's attention is clothed in contrasting white fabric, loosely attached around his groin and waist. His eyes are gently closed, his posture effortless, as if a weightless statue had learnt to breathe. Desperately trying not to make a noise, Ben attempts to enter the room. He struggles to navigate the books, newspapers, and all manner of ornaments that obscure the hard earth floor. Without opening his eyes, the meditative figure speaks. His voice is, at the same time, both light and powerful. Westerners, not your fault. A great evil at work in your world, and few able to show you how to journey inside. Ben freezes, one foot hovering over a less cluttered area of the floor. He clears his throat. Even so, when he starts to speak, his voice wavers. Maharaj, It's 3 months since I met some of your followers in town, and their stories led me to you, but I listened to your words today. When you spoke outside from under the tree, I never thought you'd have... That's not my cat. Ben balks and clears his throat again. May I ask, Maharaj, why is it there are so many places in China, here in India too, doing all these strenuous practices, if they're not useful? Why is it those things mean nothing to you? For many people, those things are the paths to enlightenment. Sensing a response may at last be forthcoming, he holds his tongue and his posture. After a while, his patience is rewarded. When have I said they mean so little? Ben is certain that the small man, just a matter of feet from him, has no time for people standing on one finger or squatting motionless for hours, but even so, he is somehow rendered unable to speak. He can't shake the thought that perhaps being struck dumb is his punishment for thrusting himself upon Maharaj in this way. Somewhere in the room a clock is ticking. Involuntarily, Ben begins to count the ticks. Maharaj continues. You have practiced those things? Having lost count of the ticks and tocks and still trying to find a way to stand on more than just one foot. In China I crouched for hours in agony, building my strength and will under my master. The effort produced the desired effect? Ben has given up trying to stand normally. Instead, his weight has been transferred to his back leg. His posture now, to anyone acquainted with the Chinese martial arts, is cat stance. I wasn't full of fear any longer. I knew I could defend myself in any situation. I may never have been as talented as my fellow students, but for a foreigner, I believe I was unsurpassed. The room falls almost silent, other, that is, than for the snoring of the cat. So loud that the tick-tocking is almost drowned. Despite the feline presence, his master, the clutter, and the hidden timepiece, for Ben a sense of emptiness permeates all.
These skills helped to protect you from yourselves?
The cat's snoring stops abruptly, but Ben has the sensation that the sound is replaced by the clock ticking from inside his head. Equally worrying is the shaking of his weight-bearing leg, which he finds a near impossibility given his strength. This leads Ben to consider that minutes have become hours, and for all he knows, hours may have become days. Other than for the searing pain coursing through his thigh, he cannot capture any thoughts about himself or his predicament. He is left with a sense of utter directionlessness, as though bobbing around in an empty sea of nothing. Shocked to recognize that an even more worrying sensation is possible, and in no more time than it takes to click your fingers, it occurs to Ben that he is no longer in time at all. As he internally recoils at the strangeness of his predicament, Maharaj's eyes open, miniature drawbridges to another world.
Moreover, did you ever ask yourself the question, what is the point of having power over anything when you already are everything?
In an instant, it is as if the whole universe is just a pair of huge, piercing eyeballs. No seeker, no master, just striking white spheres struggling to contain dancing dark pupils. At the same time, Ben notices that something is being presented to him. Apparently a complete record of his recent life, but running in reverse. Despite the incredible speed of this film, occasionally a scene is stalled and replayed. It feels to him as though the entire episode was being lived through again. Even more than that, the scene manages to appear more vivid and real than anything he remembers experiencing. Despite time, as Ben had once known it, no longer functioning, it is irrefutable that particular emphasis is being placed on the period when he was still in China, as he neared the border with Bangladesh on his way to India. Suddenly, and perhaps for the first time, he is really there. Although his physical form is evidently still trembling on one leg, in a small room in 1980s India, Ben is also apparently reliving an episode from his final period in China, at the tail end of the 1970s too. A crowd has formed around some middle-aged martial artists. Despite being at the back, Ben's height means he can see the action. An old man, referred to by those around him as Shifu, and possibly an uncle, or even a father to some of the performers, controls the tempo. The long stem of an aged grey pipe, acting as his conductor's baton. From what Ben can discern, the performance comprises of bricks and large pieces of metal being smashed or bent on various body parts. The method of Ben's arrival at this scene has been immediately replaced by a sense of familiarity and mission-like purpose. One of the three men drives the end of a thick wooden pole into a far-from-svelte partner's abdomen. Flesh wobbles and turns red, but he remains standing. Leaving his collarless shirt open, the recipient turns his attention to the clapping crowd.
Someone must have a punch that can floor me. Any boxers want to try their strength? Come on! Don't be shy. I won't hit back.
His cohorts chime in too.
Hey, what sort of a town is this? No real men? We feel sorry for your women.
A few of the women in the crowd giggle. One of the performers produces an ornate scabbard housing a wide-bladed sword from under an old sheet on the floor, and, having unsheathed it, brandishes the fearsome flashing metal above his head.
In our family for 5 generations. In all our travels, we haven't seen its equal.
Along with an audible wave of appreciation from those gathered, a wiry-looking older teenager with a large scar on his left cheek is volunteered by members of his gang. Not concentrating on his footing, he stumbles. The 50 or so spectators burst into laughter. The performers leverage the unplanned slapstick, mimicking his near fall and perpetuating the embarrassment. As the laughter abates, the entertainers seek the crowd's silence, and the man that will receive the punch runs through a series of warm-ups. His preparation appears to comprise of a flurry of kicks and rolls, none of which seem connected with readying himself for a blow to the stomach. They do, however, add to the drama. The young man's friends sound supportive, shouting out various encouraging words and phrases such as "beat fatty" and "kill piggy."
Hey, let's be clear. When I knock you out, that sword's mine, right?
The old Shifu takes it upon himself to answer.
I give you 3 tries to knock my boy down. If you can do that, you won't just get the sword. You'll be given the chance to kick my...
He gestures at his crotch with the stem of his pipe and roars with laughter. The crowd whoops and giggles too, as a foil to the young man's nerves, and in an attempt to convince the crowd, his friends, and doubtless himself, of his eagerness, he beckons his target to come forward. As the chubby man approaches, the youngster begins winding his right arm round and round like a crazed windmill. The now sweaty would-be victim, his shirt wide open, finally turns his focus to his ample stomach, making it ripple scrunch at will. It is suddenly clear that despite his monkey-like antics and the middle-aged spread, there could be some genuine skill present. The young man does his best to disguise a large gulp, but there's no going back now. Chubby takes up position, right leg adjacent to his left and knees slightly bent. His stomach is squarely offered up as fair game to the testosterone-fueled teen. The performers have done their job well, and as the audience quietens, 2 urchins, no older than 7 or 8, weave in and out, successfully collecting a payday for their Fagin-like master. The big man now pushes down on his wide leather belt, positioning it below a tummy that he distends like that of a starved child. The younger man's friends shout further taunts that include,
"Don't lose your fist in Fatty's tummy!"
with both fists tensed tightly enough for his fingernails to draw blood from his palms. The young buck glances towards his friends. At last he unleashes a powerful-looking wham! The strike finds its target just above the recipient's belly button, and the performer doubles up, staggering from side to side and looking as though he is seconds away from bringing up his lunch, collapsing, or both. Unfortunately for the deliverer of the blow, the larger man does not fall, and soon retakes a ready position.
"Two more, yes? 2 more chances to knock you down and claim my prize."
Again it is the old man that answers.
"Of course. And to get the chance to kick the real treasures."
The crowd laughs again. The old man's skill, if not any longer as a martial artist, remains evident in his puppeteer-like control. Chubby takes his time to run through yet another set of belly-related warm-ups, before signalling his readiness to accept blow number 2. The small boys weave through the crowd again, collecting the odd coin here and there and picking a pocket or two. The lean teen appears convinced that he almost landed the prize in round 1 and that a second blow will mean game over. Still watching the unfolding action, Ben feels his smile widen. Putting his hip into his punch more so than he did the first time round, the people's champion sends his knuckles powering into the same spot. Unfortunately, the results are similar. Wheezing, spluttering and quivering knees, and despite the entire crowd being apparently hell-bent on watching him fall, the bigger man stays upright. Even though failed, the youngster is beaming, clearly certain that 3 will be the charm. The old man again takes center stage.
"So you're a tough kid. Looks like you might put my son on the floor and claim your winnings. What about if we add our day's collection to the pot? If we are willing to lose more. However, if on this your 3rd and last attempt you fail, you and your friends agree to empty pockets, remove watches and jewelry, and give everything to us. Deal?"
This twist has the crowd spellbound. The gang forms an impromptu huddle, eagerly debating pros and cons. Opinions are clearly split, but sensing loss of face, the crew shouts back to their man.
"You can take him! Drop the fatso!"
His confidence amplified by the support, the young man watches as the plump martial artist readies himself for the final blow. A steely glare grips the young pup's eyes as he takes up position and measures out the trajectory of his strike, like a snooker player lining up his next pot. He suddenly lets loose his most powerful punch so far, yelling, possibly unintentionally, as he does so. The big man sways towards the crowd, the ever-present sense being that he is no more than a millisecond from eating dirt. He wobbles and moans, retches and gasps, until a whisker away from the gang. Devastatingly for the would-be kung fu star and his entourage, the big man then slowly straightens, a glint in his eye. The crowd is jubilant. the pendulum of their affections seemingly having swung in an instant, and all attention now turned to honouring of the last-minute deal. As if the decision were made by telepathy, the gang turns to run. For his part, the portly performer has, and at lightning speed, 2 of them by the scruffs of their necks. Unnoticed by most, although Ben is aware of it, the supporting actors have hold of a couple of would-be escapees too. The old man takes the opportunity to walk over to the dejected lad and offer some words of advice.
You need more training. You can't learn kung fu from watching films. You youngsters think you can escape hard work. Now you see, that's not possible.
The spectators and the old man's laughter ringing in his ears, the young man tries to swiftly conceal some of his larger notes. Sparked by the unscheduled opportunity, Ben finds he now has a possible way to fund his further travels and, even better, the chance for a nest egg to nurture once returned home. As such, he hangs around while the performers collect on their debt. The crowd begins to thin and the booty is stashed in a sack with the impressive sword. Hanging his head in shame and his captured friends now awaiting him, the young man wanders away. Having coughed up their valuables, his peers have been transformed into a vengeful mob, already acting out the types of retribution they are impatient to inflict. On his way towards the punishment, one of the scamps that had been making collections bumps into him. He pays the collision no heed. There are bigger fish to fry. The only consolation he believes he retains from this whole sorry situation is that he was not wearing a watch or jewellery, and that he has managed to outwit the Shifu by retaining some cash. Unnoticed by anyone but the old man and Ben, the urchin rushes past a bucket and deposits some takings from the small cap he's been using to receive the crowd's donations. Ben seizes his chance. It is vital that there is just enough of the crowd left to see what unfolds. In faultless Mandarin, and at a volume everyone should hear.
Going so soon?
What's left of the crowd now parts, allowing the European to move closer to the troupe. For their part, the martial artists take precisely no notice of this crazy foreign latecomer.
My money not good enough for you then?
The old man cleverly directing the labour rather than doing any work, other, that is, than scooping out and pocketing the contents of the bucket, casually meets the tall outsider's stare.
Show's over, foreigner. Time to go back wherever you came from.
Pulling a wad of notes from his money belt, until now concealed below his trouser waistband, and brandishing it for all to see, Ben has evidently decided that now is the time to up the ante. He points at the chubby performer, just finished rebuttoning his shirt.
This says I put your man on the ground with just one punch. A stupid foreigner like me couldn't be a threat to a real Chinese martial artist, right?
The big guy rises to the bait.
No problem. Get ready to lose everything.
The old man is not so keen.
Hey, ignore him. Like he says, just a big-mouth foreigner.
Unfortunately, there are still enough interested spectators around to press home Ben's case.
Let him try. He's got a big mouth. Let him prove it.
The protestations continue for a while, and eventually Chunky snaps and runs over to Ben.
Let's get on with it.
The old man puts his head in his hands, but surprisingly it's Ben that slows the tempo.
Not so fast, big brother. You know what I'm giving you if you win. But what about if I win? You? You can have anything. What can this bloody devil do? Let him throw his best punch.
They back off and allow the action to unfold.
It's a deal then. It's a deal, foreigner.
Ben puts the notes away and undoes the money belt's buckle. He holds the pouch aloft and gestures for the performer's treasure sack to be brought closer, which, begrudgingly, one of the other brothers concedes to do. The old man lifts his head from his hands and looks across at Ben.
If my stupid boy stays standing, I want that necklace. I want a trophy. So that everyone can hear. Hey, foreigner, when you lose, I get that thing from around your neck.
Ben hesitates for a second, his hand automatically rushing protectively to cover the exposed gold and jade.
Not so happy to lose something that matters to you, eh? If you've changed your mind, we can all be on our way.
Ben grimaces and carefully slips the chain over his head. He places it into the pouch and then gingerly lays that near his left foot. The old man grins. The rotund performer undoes his shirt. This time he dispenses with any sort of warm-up, mock or otherwise. He grips the floor through his boots with his toes and sinks into a solid ready stance. The old Shifu is fast at his boy's side, whispering. Once the pep talk is over, Chubby grunts a single word.
Okay.
Another brother circles round to Ben's left, likely keen to extract the winnings as soon as the punch lands. The reduced crowd is enthusiastic about watching a foreigner, having maybe not understood that the previous crew was taken for a ride, lose his savings, and so important in this culture, not just his face, but that of his entire breed. Even the young hoods, otherwise consumed with wailing on the new outcast, keep one eye on the unfolding events. Ben does not take up any particular posture, nor even remove his sizable rucksack. Instead, he stands rather impatiently, his posture similar to that of someone waiting for an occupied toilet cubicle. Then, as though momentarily possessed, he drops into a powerful-looking stance and sends a twisting fist downwards into the solar plexus of the man in front of him. The old master, now 20 paces or more away, reacts cartoon-like, his neck straining forward and his eyes close to popping out of his skull. For an instant, he is one of only 3 people, the subject of the strike included, who appreciate just how telling the blow is. Chubby staggers backwards, unable to breathe and staring down at his tummy, for so long his expansive pride and joy. Then, as though the very life force had been sucked from his legs, his knees buckle and he falls, face first and without extending his arms, onto the floor. There is a mixture of marvel and horror from the audience and the performers, stunned and incredulous that a stomach punch has created a consequence, usually the result of a perfectly timed whack to the jaw, Ben snatches up his money belt, walks across to the brother that has been guarding the day's spoils, relieves them from him, and throws the entire kit and caboodle over his shoulder to the side of his backpack. Then he stalls for a moment, apparently sizing up the old geezer for a hoof between the legs.
You owe me the contents of your pockets, I believe.
What?
Into the bag.
The old man is clearly less than keen to acquiesce, not least because what remains of the audience are unlikely to react well to seeing how much extra had been, less than legitimately garnered from them. Ben presses home the old man's need to comply by making it look like he is about to launch his foot squarely at the Shifu's other possessions of value.
Take it. Take it all. Just go.
Ben receives the reluctant offering, shakes his head, turns, and walks away. Just as suddenly as the scene with the kung fu troupe in China had come into focus, it fades, like the remnants of a dream upon waking. With his single weight-bearing leg shaking more violently than ever, Ben struggles to formulate words. Such as he might, his thoughts seem to have lost their ability to coagulate. Maharaj, peaceful and motionless, slowly opens his eyes again.
Am I wrong in saying you once asked a solemn favor of me? Did you not say, Master, cut off my head that I may die before I die? Assuming I remember correctly, let me ask you a question. If you are so strongly identified with what you call I, when that cut is made, what will be left?
Wobbling close to uncontrollably and unable to return his master's compassionate stare, Ben bows his head. Maharaj begins to chuckle. Finally, some words come.
It didn't happen. Well, not like that. Believe me, Master. I'm certain it wasn't.
Maharaj remains cross-legged on the floor, swaying gently back and forth, as though he were neck-deep in a warm and tranquil sea.
You told yourself to make the decision to travel east in search of a treasure called wisdom. Did you not for one moment consider your thoughts might not have been your own? What if, in truth, someone was sending you, or perhaps calling you? Ben cringes in anticipation of what more his master may add. His wait is short-lived. Unless you find the root of your disease, unless you starve your demons, there will be only suffering. Maharaj's beautiful beaming eyes dim for a moment. Search your memories until you think you can search no more. At that point, your real search begins. Beware those you call friends. All is exactly how it is, but almost always completely different to how it seems to you.
There is a sense of finality in Maharaj's statement. Ben puts his palms together, touching their tips to his forehead as he bows. Still trying not to disturb the ordered mess at his feet, he stumbles on his only useful leg and backs geisha-like from the room. He is close to tears, but they do not come. It seems to Ben that his emotions are too confusing for his system to process. On one hand, the depths of despair, and on the other, soaring with elation. Once outside, he turns to walk back to his shared quarters. As he does so, he feels a light breeze and watches as a large green leaf dances into his path. The leg that moments earlier had been about to fail already feels strong again. Ben suddenly has the sense that he is in the throes of some kind of absolution. Whatever the case, for some reason there is a certainty that he will never be able to repay this master. He absent-mindedly meanders through a large open-air courtyard, talking to himself, although more mouthing the words than really speaking. No wonder Captain Cambridge went on about the master's powers. Anyone, any government, would want to get their hands on that sort of stuff. A voice startles Ben.
What have you been up to?
A young and handsome man has seemingly appeared from nowhere. An electric current courses up Ben's spine.
Gideon,